Good morning, George. You're muted.
Not sure who I'm talking to.
Yes, yeah, I'm Melissa. Nice to meet you.
And we are ready to begin our service. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My apologies for leaving everybody waiting in the waiting room. I'm Steve. I am Zoom host 1, and it was my error that I wasn't seeing everybody who was stacked up in the waiting room. But thank you so much for joining us for our service.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our worship service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Julie Caros, and I'm co-chair of the worship committee. Thank you to everyone in the Great Hall and at home who's helping this morning. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those values and principles move us to remember that we in Northampton inhabit unceded land of the Pocumtuck and Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history, even as we affirm and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. We are here to support and celebrate one another and to renew ourselves with hope and gratitude and new resolve. It's wonderful to see you all, both here in our Great Hall and online. If you are new or returning after a time away, welcome. Please feel free to fill out a welcome card, which you can do by following the link in the chat. This allows us to put you on our email contact list. We ask everyone to keep your videos off except during the greeting in order to help the technology work as smoothly as possible. There's a link in the chat to today's order of meeting. There will also be a Zoom social hour after the service. And now we will begin our service.
Good morning, everybody. Is my mic on? Is it? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the poetry service. I'm going to be leading the service this morning, and my fellow reader is Janet Spongberg. The opening words are from Endymion by John Keats. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but will still keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Therefore, on every morrow, are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. Spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and o'er-darkened ways made of our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits. And now we will light the chalice, and please join me in the words for the lighting. If you can see them. There's a slide for that, right? No. Can you advance? Sorry. Yes, and then the next one. I did that. Okay, here we are. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. And now we will join together in singing hymn number 1. I hope you will sing this along at home because it's so beautiful. This is All Creatures of the Earth and Sky, number 203. We're going to do verses 1 through 3. Alleluia, alleluia. Something about that hymn almost makes me want to sing Amen at the end. The theme of today's service, the greeting, I'm so sorry. How silly of me. The greeting. We invite those online to turn on your videos and greet each other. Choose gallery view, you can see each other. You can come over and see it here. If I can see it.
And if you would like to type a message in the chat, I will be happy to read some of the messages that we have in the chat window.
Steve, can you give us gallery view? No biggie if you can't. I know who's here. That's all right. Never mind. I'm seeing the names of people who are here and I appreciate their presence. Sorry? I beg your pardon? Oh, yes, no. Oh, there we go. Look at that. I see people I know.
So from Melissa, greetings from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Ginny Furinger says, nice to see you all.
Hi, Sally. That's great. I feel very happy to see all these faces. Yes, exactly. All right, I think it's time to start. Everybody is okay, very good. Sorry for a little technical awkwardnesses here. So the theme of today's service and of the ragged bouquet of poems I have assembled is beauty. It's hard to say why these are the ones I picked out of the many more that I considered, except they are the ones who most loudly made beauty's argument to me. Look at me, examine me, be dazzled by me, I belong in the vase. Many poems occurred to me that I've loved so long, I thought I might have already have used them in some previous service, so I opened up old files to find out. It was a bit of a shock to discover that in 2010, I'd already done a poetry service about beauty, which I titled The Flowers Instruction, but there isn't much overlap. My concern then was that as nature itself is the pattern for all beauty, and as our humility, awe, gratitude, and joy in beauty is our deepest reference point for determining what is good and true, how shall we keep that reference point in a degraded world? How shall we remember beauty when we live so much of our lives in a box, staring at a box? How can we navigate when city lights everywhere dim the stars? Where's our solace now? Many of the poems we'll read today address those questions. I think they feel more pressing every day. And I think our abiding need for the beautiful to cheer us and to remind us how to be human grows sharper all the time. But our first poems are full of certainty, like our opening words from Keats, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Hopkins goes first. Pied Beauty is the first poem almost everyone cited when I asked them, what's the most beautiful poem you know? Certainty expresses itself in the powerful architecture of sonnet forms, rhyme schemes, a glory in human craft that's laid out like a rich offering before the reader. Even Robinson Jeffers' poem, which doesn't rhyme, is full of repeating words and phrases. It sounds nothing like conversation. The well-made thing is immortal, say Yeats and Shakespeare. Dickinson confirms this in her characteristic, laceratingly austere lines. Her speaker has died. but this poem has not. Louise Bogan's poem may be the single one here you don't already know, but it too is architectural, as slender on the page as the fountain it describes. And I will say that because this poetry service always comes at the end of summer, that poignant, beautiful cusp of autumn, summer poems, like sunflowers, shout at me, pick me, pick me.
Pied Beauty by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple color as a brinded cow, for rose moles all in stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire cold chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow, and all trades, their gear and tackle and trim, all things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle, dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him.
The second poem is Sailing to Byzantium, a poem I fell in love with when I was in college. Yeats wrote this when he was old, and he is looking forward to the end of his life and sailing to Byzantium, which is a mythologized kingdom of wisdom and beauty, where he will sing forever like a mechanical nightingale. 1. That is no country for old men. The young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song, the salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh, or fowl, commend all summer long whatever is begotten, born, and dies. Caught in that sensual music, all neglect monuments of unaging intellect. 2. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing and louder sing for every tatter in its mortal dress. Nor is there singing school, but studying monuments of its own magnificence. And therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. 3. O sages standing in God's holy fire, as in the gold mosaic of a wall, come from the holy fire, burn in a gyre, and be the singing masters of my soul. Consume my heart away, sick with desire and fastened to a dying animal, it knows not what it is, and gather me into the artifice of eternity. 4. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make of hammered gold and gold enameling to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium of what is past or passing or to come.
The next poem is Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, and I think you'll know it. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course, untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
This is Roman Fountain by Louise Bogan. Up from the bronze, I saw water without a flaw, rush to its rest in air, reach to its rest and fall. Bronze of the blackest shade, an element man-made, shaping upright the bare, clear gouts of water in air. Oh, as with arm and hammer, still it is good to strive to beat out the image whole, to echo the shout and stammer when full gushed waters, alive, strike on the fountain's bowl after the air of summer.
This is Robinson Jeffers' poem, Their Beauty Has More Meaning. Yesterday morning, enormous, the moon hung low on the ocean, round and yellow rose in the glow of dawn. The night herons flapping home wore dawn on their wings. Today, black is the ocean, black and sulfur the sky, and white seas leap. I honestly do not know which day is more beautiful. I know that tomorrow, or next year, or in 20 years, I shall not see these things. And it does not matter. It does not hurt. They will be here. And when the whole human race has been, like me, rubbed out, they will still be here. Storms, moon, and ocean, dawn, and the birds. And I say this, their beauty has more meaning than the whole human race and the race of birds.
Emily Dickinson. I died for beauty, but was scarce adjusted in the tomb when one who died for truth was lain in an adjoining room. He questioned softly why I failed. For beauty, I replied. And I for truth, themself are one. We brethren are, he said. And so, as kinsmen met a night, we talked between the rooms until the moss had reached our lips and covered up our names. We will now sing together again. Hymn number 94, What is This Life? What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stop and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like stars at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet how they can dance. A poor life this, if full of care. We have no time to stand and stare. The next poems are modern ones, in some ways easier for us to hear. They're not written in a heightened language, but have the tone of ordinary conversation. With keen eyes and a certain determination, they ferret out beauty in the unlikeliest places, holding up small details or loss or sadness themselves as comforting. Tony Hoagland's poem is the single one here about a beautiful woman, but it's at the moment that she loses her beauty, and she's not his lover, but his sister. Dorianne Lowe uses all her poetic skill to convince us that amid all the waste we generate, the persistence of life is still beautiful, though her examples include pigeons and squirrels, often described as rats with wings and rats with fluffy tails, that is, vermin. Beauty is humbly present in a dinner of pizza, and an earthbound human heartbeat must stand in for the music of the spheres. Stephen Dunn's poem Mercy is the single exception to this pattern. He refuses to pretend that ugly is beautiful, and he has the single funniest line: "This music is better than it sounds." Britt? I'm doing this one. Beauty by the great Tony Hoagland. When the medication she was taking caused tiny vessels in her face to break, leaving faint but permanent blue stitches in her cheeks, my sister said she knew she would never be beautiful again. After all those years of watching her reflection in the mirror, sucking in her stomach and standing straight, she said it was a relief being done with beauty. But I could see her pause inside that moment as the knowledge spread across her face with a fine distress, sucking the peach out of her lips, making her cute nose seem, for the first time, a little knobby. I'm probably the only one in the whole world who actually remembers the year in high school she perfected the art of being a dumb blonde, spending recess on the breezeway by the physics lab, tossing her hair and laughing that canary trill, which was her specialty, while some football player named Johnny, with a pained expression in his eyes, wrapped his thick finger over and over again in the bedspring of one of those pale curls. Or how she spent the next decade of her life auditioning a series of tall men, looking for just one with the kind of attention span she could count on. Then one day her time of prettiness was over, done, finito, and all those other beautiful women in the magazines and on the streets just kept on being beautiful everywhere you looked, walking in that kind of elegant, disinterested trance in which you sense they always seem to have one hand touching the secret place that keeps their beauty safe, inhaling and exhaling the perfume of it. It was spring, season when the young buttercups and daisies climb up on the mulched bodies of their forebears to wave their flags in the parade. My sister just stood still for 30 seconds, amazed by what was happening, then shrugged and tossed her shaggy head as if she was throwing something out, something she had carried a long ways, but now had no use for anymore, now that it had no use for her. That, too, was beautiful.
This is Bach and My Father by Paul Zimmer. 6 days a week, my father sold shoes to support our family through depression and war, nursed his wife through years of Parkinson's, loved nominal cigars, Manhattans, long jokes, never kissed me, but always shook my hand. Once he came to visit me when a Brandenburg was on the stereo. He listened with care, brisk melodies, symmetry, civility, and passion. When it finished, he asked to hear it again, moving his right hand in time. He would have risen to dance if he had known how. Beautiful, he said when it was done. My father, who'd never heard of Brandenburg, 80 years old, bent and scuffed all over. Just in time, he said, "It's beautiful."
Life is Beautiful by Dorianne Lowe, and remote and useful, if only to itself. Take the fly, angel of the ordinary house, laying its bright eggs on the trash, pressing each jewel out delicately along a crust of buttered toast. Bagged, the whole mess travels to the nearest dump, where other flies have gathered, singing over stained newsprint and reeking fruit. Wrapped on air, they execute an intricate ballet above the clashing pirouettes of heavy machinery. They hum with life, while inside rumpled sacks, pure white maggots writhe and spiral from a rip, a tear-shaped hole that drools and drips a living froth onto the buried earth. The warm days pass, gulls scree and pitch, rats manage the crevices, feral cats abandon their litters for a morsel of torn fur, stranded dogs roam open fields, sniff the fragrant edges, a tossed lacework of bones and shredded flesh. And the maggots tumble at the center, ripening, husks membrane thin, embryos darkening and shifting within, wings curled and wet, the open air pungent and ready to receive them in their fecund iridescence. And so, of our homely hosts, a bag of jewels is born again into the world. Come, lost children of the sun-drenched kitchen, your parents soundly sleep along the windowsill, content, wings at rest, nestled in against the warm glass. Everywhere, the good life oozes from the useless waste we make when we create. Our streets teem with human young, rafts of pigeons streaming over the squirrel-burdened trees. If there is a purpose, maybe there are too many of us to see it, though we can, from a distance, hear the dull thrum of generations' industry, feel its fleshly wheel churn the fire inside us, pushing the world forward toward its ragged edge, rushing like a swollen river into multitude and rank disorder. Such abundance. We are gorged and gorging and gorgeous.
Wow, Sarah, maybe the pizza should have gone first. I spent a fair amount of time this hot summer with my compost bucket, so just a little joke to get us ready. The next poem is Fabulous Pizza by Roselle Hunt. You made us this fabulous pizza like the one in the cafe in the streets along the Mississippi that day in New Orleans, with ground sausage and rice and beans. We'd gone to church that morning. It was Sunday, and we heard a band playing on Burgundy Street and sat in a cafe and drank red wine and held hands in the Louisiana sunshine. It was beautiful. I felt the angels hover as the brass band marched down the street, me with my hand on your leg, you, my lover, your fine clothes, the sandals on your feet. How simple life is. We hear music, we are fed. We sit close to each other with angels overhead.
The poem I'm reading next is by David Wagoner, who is a favorite poet of mine. And later in the service, I have another poem of his, and I don't usually put in two by the same person, but Wagoner died in January, and he deserves some notice. This is The Silence of the Stars. When Lawrence Vanderpost one night in the Kalahari Desert told the Bushmen he couldn't hear the stars singing, they didn't believe him. They looked at him, half smiling. They examined his face to see whether he was joking or deceiving them. Then two of those small men who plant nothing, who have almost nothing to hunt, who live on almost nothing, and with no one but themselves, led him away from the crackling thorn scrub fire and stood with him under the night sky and listened. One of them whispered, "Do you not hear them now?" And Vanderpost listened, not wanting to disbelieve, but had to answer, "No." They walked him slowly like a sick man to the small, dim circle of firelight and told him they were terribly sorry. And he felt even sorrier for himself and blamed his ancestors for their strange loss of hearing. which was his loss now. On some clear nights when nearby houses have turned off their visions, when traffic dwindles, when through streets are between sirens and the jets overhead are between crossings, when the wind is hanging fire in the fir trees, and the long-eared owl in the neighboring grove between calls is regarding his own darkness, I look at the stars again as I first did, to school myself in the names of constellations, and remember my first sense of their terrible distance. I can still hear what I thought at the edge of silence were the inside jokes of my heartbeat, my arterial traffic, the sea above high C of my inner ear, myself tunelessly humming. But now I know what they are. My fair share of the music of the spheres and clusters of ripening stars, of the songs from the throats of the old gods, still tending ever tone-deaf creatures through their exiles in the desert.
This is Mercy by Stephen Dunn. The music was fidgety, arch, an orchestral version of twang. Welcome to atonal hell. Welcome to the execution of a theory, I kept thinking. I hadn't felt a thing. Was it old-fashioned of me to want to? Or were feelings, as usual, part of the problem? The conductor seemed to flail more than lead, his baton evidence of something unresolved, perhaps recent trouble at home. And though I liked the cellist, especially the way she held her instrument, unless you had a taste for unhappiness, you didn't want to look at the first violinist's face. My wife whispered to me, "The music is better than it sounds." I reminded myself the world outside might be a worse place than where I was now, though that seemed little reason to take heart. Instead, I closed my eyes, thought about a certain mezzo-soprano who could gladden a sad day anywhere, but one January night in Milan went a full octave into the beyond. Sometimes escape can be an art or a selfishness, or just a gift you need to give yourself. Whichever, I disappeared for a while, left my body behind to sit there, nod, applaud at the appropriate time.
It's time for the offering. Here's the slide. Please click in the links or the chat, or visit our website and click on the donate button. And meanwhile, we will hear the offertory. The meditation is from Elaine Scarry's book on beauty and being just. What is the felt experience of cognition at the moment one stands in the presence of a beautiful boy or flower or bird? It seems to incite, even to require, the act of replication. Wittgenstein says that when the eye sees something beautiful, the hand wants to draw it. Beauty brings copies of itself into being. It makes us draw it, take photographs of it, or describe it to other people. A beautiful face drawn by Verrocchio suddenly glides into the perceptual field of a young boy named Leonardo. The boy copies the face, then copies the face again, then again and again and again. The generation is unceasing. Beauty, as both Plato's Symposium and everyday life confirm, prompts the begetting of children. When the eye sees someone beautiful, the whole body wants to reproduce that person. This phenomenon of unceasing begetting sponsors in people like Plato, Aquinas, and Dante the idea of eternity, the perpetual duplicating of a moment that never stops. But it also sponsors the idea of terrestrial plenitude and distribution, the will to make more and more so that there will eventually be enough. This impulse toward a distribution across perceivers is, as both museums and postcards verify, the most common response to beauty. Addis is full of blossoms, wish you were here. The nightingale sang again last night, come here as soon as you can. We have an example of such distribution here today. A simple poem by James Purdy inspired the composer Richard Hundley to set it to music. And Gregory Hayes found that song setting so beautiful, he was moved to transcribe it for piano. Here is the poem. Come ready and see me. No matter how late, come before the years run out. I'm waiting with a candle. No wind will blow out, but you must haste on foot or by sky, for no one can wait forever under the bluest sky. I can't wait forever, for the years are running out. Our last poems express for me the truth that beauty is essential, something we require like air or food. In fact, neurological research shows that the part of the brain that responds to beauty, the interior insula, is also the part that responds to pleasant smells or tastes, or conversely to bitterness of poisons, distinctions that are a matter of life and death. And I don't see how I can have neglected so far to mention that beauty, as it is fleeting, reminds us of our mortality, at the same time that it reminds us why life is worth living. These final 5 poems say, in order, we must fiercely seek out beauty, give it our full attention, our full respect, be unafraid to speak beautifully, and have faith. I'm reading the first 2 poems, Britt, and Janet is reading the next 2 in a row. So that's a bit of a departure, right? Yes. Ready? Okay. Me. me. I don't know. I thought I was the other camera. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. This is Entreaty by Joseph J. Capista. Having seen the osprey grasp and then set its fish, so that en route from the sea to bays, prey's eyes face only west, having seen, half sunblind, that glint writhe then rise to unimagined heights on nothing but thin air, one ultimate kindness before spicule, tooth, and tongue. Having seen struggle slacken to repose as, descending on the nest, catch glimpses the caught, compendium of spine and gill and jaw agape, kaleidoscopic shambles shimmering in scales. I say, raise me like that, unmaker, wide-eyed and broken-backed, if only so that I, unmade, might see for once, beyond all doubt, those unknown, unfathomable parts that are and are not me. And this is The Vacation by Wendell Berry. Once there was a man who filmed his vacation. He went flying down the river in his boat with his video camera to his eye, making a moving picture of the moving river upon which his sleek boat moved swiftly toward the end of his vacation. He showed his vacation to his camera, which pictured it, preserving it forever. The river, the trees, the sky, the light, the bow of his rushing boat, behind which he stood with his camera, preserving his vacation even as he was having it, so that after he had had it, he would still have it. It would be there. With a flick of a switch, there it would be. But he would not be in it. He would never be in it.
The Water Lily by David Wagner. As slowly, as carefully as a waiting bird, the elderly Japanese photographer comes down stone steps, under leaves, through pale green light to the pond, and wavers at the brink, where a single water lily, white around gold, lies open. Bending, he stares long, and bending farther, moves along the bankside, pauses again to gaze, to focus at last, to shift, to hesitate. to lift his eyes among wrinkles, to lift one shoulder and one small corner of his mouth, to take no picture, but slowly to turn away, to take nothing away but his mind's eye. And at the risk of breaking the mood and glossing a 10-word haiku, I feel moved to thank my granddaughter, Abby. She is 6 years old, and yesterday afternoon, all afternoon, she reminded me how much more important the butt of a merganser duck is while mucking about in the Connecticut River than sounding out your letters to read the sign above that says danger. So this one is for Abby. It's a translation of Basho by Robert Haas, and I thank them too. The old pond, a frog jumps in, sound of water.
This is End of Summer by Stanley Kunitz. An agitation of the air, a perturbation of the light, admonished me the unloved year would turn on its hinge that night. I stood in the disenchanted field amid the stubble and the stones, amazed, while a small worm lisped to me the song of my marrow bones. Blue poured into summer blue. A hawk broke from his cloudless tower. The roof of the silo blazed, and I knew that part of my life was over. Already the iron door of the north clangs open. Birds, leaves, snows order their populations forth, and a cruel wind blows.
This is God's Grandeur by Gerard Manley Hopkins. The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed. Why do men then now not wreck his rod? Generations have trod, and all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears man's smudge and shares man's smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. And though the last lights off the black west went, oh, morning at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with bright wings.
And now we will sing together once more a great favorite hymn of mine and of our guest musician. Let All the Beauty We Have Known, number 326.
Let all the
The closing words are from Rachel Carson. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. And please listen carefully to our postlude, which starts very softly.